We're reconvening the Wicomico County Council Legislative Session 2023-24 for December 19th, 2023. First item on the agenda for the open work session, we have our quarterly meeting with the Wicomico County Board of Education. Pleasure to have you here.
Pleasure to be here.
What I would do is ask you to, as you've done before, is to state your name from my left to right for the public so they know who all you distinguished men and women are.
Okay, I'll get it started. I'm Gene Malone. I'm chairman of the Wicomico County Board of Education.
Good afternoon, Micah Stauffer, Superintendent of Schools for Wicomico County.
Good afternoon, everyone. Brian Rager, Chief Finance and Operations Officer.
Hello, everyone. Kim Miles, Assistant Superintendent with Student and Family Services.
Good morning, Rick Briggs, Chief Academic Officer.
Pleased to have you here. Understand we still have some rain issues and detours outside. Yeah. But we appreciate you being here, and as is always, you're always prepared, and you have the agenda of discussion issues, and we appreciate that as well.
Absolutely.
Dr. Stouffer, I'll let you begin if you
Well, good afternoon. Thank you for having us in our quarterly work session today. A number of items on the agenda are items that we'd like to speak with you, and I know you had a number of items that you had questions about as well, so they should all be included here, and then we can certainly have a discussion and take questions through each one. The first one that's listed there is the speed detection or weapons detection cameras. We weren't sure exactly what the council was asking for.
Yeah, so I brought it up because I just thought it was a great idea because I was at Mako and I ran into a guy that does speed cameras, and I was in a conversation with him and I said, well, I don't know how the county would like speed cameras, you know, but he mentioned that they also have this, he has, I'm recollecting and I have his information, but they have this camera system where they can put cameras up, and if they hear a gunshot or anything, they can tell what gun it is, what caliber, where it is, and it can direct people exactly to where it is. And he also said that he would be willing to do, I think, set two schools up to do it just as a pro bono, just as a tester to see how it works. Hopefully it never has to be used, but he brought it to my attention and he said, I'm looking for a county that's willing to try this, and I thought you guys would be interested in it. I see there's some unspent SRO money, and I don't know if that's, not that we would need it, because he said he would do 2 cameras pro bono at select schools. It could be an elementary school, something critical, but I just thought I would bring that to your attention.
Thank you, Mr. Nguyen. So we thought that maybe what you were speaking of, so we did come prepared, and thank you for also mentioning number 2, so we can thread those 2 things together throughout our discussion, and I'll turn that over to Mrs. Miles.
Thank you, Dr. Stauffer. And Mr. Nguyen, thank you for the information. I'd certainly be interested in getting the contact info that you mentioned. What you're talking of in that particular situation is, as you described, a sound sensory system. Right. And it responds to the impact, the sound of the gunfire itself. Those are very, obviously very helpful, and we hope we never have to use them. But I also have been investigating, or our team has investigated, and received a good deal of information on an artificial intelligence system that detects the shape or the format of a weapon. And it does that through the current camera systems in our schools. It's a fully monitored system. If someone walks through a door, or a doorway rather, and there is detected the shape of a weapon, it's automatically information sent to our system, to EMS, to others that would need to be involved. That is, like I said, an artificial intelligence system that it commingles and interacts with the current camera system. We do have energy going into trying to find funding for that, and it's based on the number of cameras that are activated with that system. And so with that in mind, we have already this year submitted 2 rather major grants. We did not receive them, but we did receive good feedback in terms of how to move forward. One was a federal COPS grant, and the other was a state grant, and we are continuing to move forward in those directions as well as other directions with interest in this area. Like you said, Mr. Nguyen, I hope it's money that it once spent never has to be used. But I don't want there to be money that could be spent in that direction and not, and there be a need. We all hope that never happens. Yes, ma'am.
Use what detectors when people go through the door. What is
Metal detector.
metal
We,
detectors?
we do not have the stand-up systems of metal detectors currently. We have investigated those. We do have wands available in all of our schools for use by administration as needed, but we do not have the walk-through detection system.
We have the walkthrough.
My apologies.
Would it be cheaper to get the walkthrough first?
There is a cost difference. The walkthroughs are very human energy dependent, very much so. You have to have persons manning those systems. You have to have persons prepared to pull aside anyone identified as having to be searched. You have to have multiple eyes on the system as it's active. It's in place in some schools, and I hope that it's going very well for them. We have visited sites, and I certainly am not just saying that it's a bad system by any means. Any system that will help in the safety of the schools is a positive, but what I described prior to the question about the walk-through systems, that is not manpower dependent on our end other than in the response. So that we were looking at it through that lens as well. We continue to look at both avenues, though, we do, Ms. Shields.
Clear book bags. I've seen some county initiated clear book bags. Have you all ever thought about that? There's any ups or downs about it?
I think there are ups and downs about it, Mr. Holloway, quite honestly. It has gotten some discussion. It's not the avenue that we've chosen to go at this point.
Seems to me like somebody wants to sneak something in, they just wrap it up in a towel and put it in a clear book bag. But that was my first thought when I seen it on the news. I didn't know.
Can't say the thought didn't enter my mind.
Pardon me?
Can't say the thought did not enter my mind.
Yeah, so.
We've, no, thank you. We've looked at a number of different things. That was one, and that thought, same thought, came across our minds as well. The artificial intelligence system that hooks up through our already existing camera system is also something that we have been really looking at and very interested in. We can talk about that as far as the unspent SRO funding as well in just a minute. And then also the weapons detection systems, the metal detectors. They're very, large systems. You'd have to, thinking about a school like Parkside, Y-High, or Bennett, you'd have to have multiple walk-through systems, probably at least 3 to 4 pairs of those in some of the size schools that you're talking about. And they are definitely at a much higher cost than the artificial intelligence systems that hook up with the camera system. So I think anything is possible, and we're looking at that, but also we have to look at the things that we know that we can do through the funding that we receive, and also know that we can do effectively with the, as Mrs. Miles said, the human capacity that we have available to work through all of that. So if we look at the unspent SRO funding, we have not been able to fill those positions through the Sheriff's Department at this point in time. So that is funding that is still out there. That's reoccurring funding that we said we would come back to the council and talk through possible avenues to utilize that funding until such time that we're able to work with the Sheriff's Department and they're able to fill those 5 SRO positions that we have requested. So that funding would be approximately $500,000 that we can utilize during the course of this point in the year. So from July 1 through December, end of December, those funds have been unutilized. So that amount, that balance of that funding could be utilized at this point in time to look at other school safety and security items. So I have asked Mrs. Miles to kind of talk us through that just a little bit as well.
Certainly, Dr. Stauffer, and thank you. As I was mentioning the AI, or the artificial intelligence, the vision propelled rather than the sound propelled, we do have cost estimates on that, and that certainly could be an item that would be, with approval, or with support, would be along the lines of our safety plan. Additionally, we have been investigating and have received estimates and implementation planning for open door sensors. It basically is an alarm system that tells you when a door is left open. Not to oversimplify it, but we do have security systems on the doors, and we do have buildings filled with a lot of human beings who sometimes the door can get propped open or chalked open or whatever the term may be, or sometimes perhaps there's a mechanical issue. And in order to keep our schools safe from the inside, we need to keep them protected from the outside, and that is one way, so that's another area. Another item that would be under consideration would be a second Knox box for the schools, and some of you may be familiar with that more than others. That is a system that currently we do have a Knox KNOX box at each location that provides access for EMS, fire, police, all emergency systems to be able to enter the building, which is fantastic. But our buildings have multiple sides and entrances and egresses, and this would allow us to separate and have a second option for those emergency service personnel to be able to access the school as needed. It would be an electronic system. Currently, it is my understanding that the majority of the EMS vehicles in the county and the municipalities do have access to the electronic lock system and what is necessary for their entrance, but I don't want to speak solidly on that because I'm sure there are some that I may not have the information about just yet. So those are some of the items. Again, focusing on the availability of that funds to support the continuously monitored and developed and implemented safety plan that goes across all of our WCPS sites.
Are those one-time expenses? Or is that going to be a reoccurring expense with subscriptions or anything? Or would those just be one-time?
The open door
Because what we
sensors and the Knox boxes would be single purchase.
Right, because the 500,000 is reoccurring, correct?
It's what's available now due to the inability to this point in time to fill the SRO positions, though full credit to WCSO and the work they're doing and the numbers of persons they have in Academy. So this would be, I believe, and I'll defer to my right, but this would be single-use funding at this time.
Okay.
Yeah, it would need to be one-time funding at this point in time because our hope and our goal is to fill those positions as soon as possible. So once that happens, then that funding will all go towards those reoccurring salaries for additional school resource officers. But at this point in time, for several months, we've obviously been operating without any of those additional school resource officers, only with the 10 that we currently have.
But
Is
Sorry.
part of that 500,000, isn't that grant funded?
That was additional funding, and I'll look for Jesse for confirmation.
250,000 of that was the money you gave us, the other 250,000.
Yes.
Is that
If you could, use the mic, thanks, because the public is not going to hear you.
Is it on?
Yes, I believe it is.
Can you hear me?
Yes, thank you.
So yes, 250,000 of that was money that the county gave us last year. It's recurring, and the other 250,000 is grant funding.
Is the grant recurring or?
You have to apply each year,
Apply each
but we
year?
should,
Okay.
yeah.
We've been very successful with that grant.
Yeah.
Historically,
so,
As we should be.
as we should be. Yes.
all right, you have another question, Jeff? Or?
No, I'm good.
I was going to ask, would it be a good time? Now, I think these other expenses are great. I think they're good and they're merited. But I was also thinking, would it be a good time to establish a relationship with a private security company that can supply SRO protection for some of these vulnerable schools? Because, it's been a year almost a year, I would say, since we asked the Sheriff's Department to see if they could up the ante and fill the role. And I know that we have private security right now that can fill that. I don't know if that's something that could be entertained in the future. Obviously, I think these expenses are great. Maybe this is something we could do next year, private security-wise, if we can't get the deputies to fill these roles, because they're busy too, and I get it. Is that?
I think that's something we can certainly discuss. Our hope in talking with the Sheriff's Department, we've had ongoing conversations with them, is that they've currently been the relationship that we've had the entire time that we've had school resource officers in the schools, and they would be first and foremost our top consideration. And they're working very hard and sending applicants to the Criminal Justice Academy, and our hope is that sooner rather than later that they're able to fill those positions. But should a time come, and I think you're right, it's been some time, and we're probably getting close to that time that we may need to consider other options. That could certainly be something on the table.
Did you ever think about talking to the city? Did the city ever step forward?
We've talked, and they've had the same. I've talked with Chief Mindshine, and I know that he's had some of the same concerns and same issues with his own department in filling those positions.
So, are you looking for us to talk about these other options?
I think we were just making sure that we had information to you, because that was certainly something that the council provided, that additional funding above and beyond our current local funding for us for that purpose. And we indicated to the council that we would come back to you at a time when if those funds were unspent, because the school resource officers were not yet filled. So we're coming back to you, letting you know that at this point in time we're considering what we're going to be able to do with those remaining funds that haven't been spent yet, and they are going to definitely go towards the safety and security of our schools in some form or fashion.
Okay.
If we don't spend it, is it teed up for the next fiscal year? Does it carry, I guess, does it carry over?
Yeah.
Or does it have to be used?
It could be carried over, and I'll look again to Mr. Reed. He may need to come provide additional information. But that's that portion that the council's provided is reoccurring funding. So we would want to try to spend it in this fiscal year if at all possible.
Yes, sir. If it's not spent, it goes into our fund balance, which then rolls into next year's revenue.
Okay. All right, thank you.
It's up front.
Questions?
Get his exercise.
Number 3?
Real quick, you know if the sheriff's office is posting this as overtime? So if they need a deputy, let's say tomorrow that called out sick, are they posting it for all patrol? Do you want to fill this position, overtime? Are you getting that? Are you getting deputies that are filling in?
I know there are postings. I don't know the internal workings of the sheriff's office to say exactly how that's being communicated. We do have within the agreement and the allowances of the state short-term where deputies can, who are not specific to SRO training, can be in place of those SROs, but that's very short-term.
Yeah. I know they've posted it a couple of different ways, not only through the regular route, but also looking at retirees from other police forces and police departments to come on board for that purpose.
Which is what we have in Worcester, and it works out pretty good.
Yep. All right, number 3, update on school discipline and school violence. This has been one of our primary focuses this year as we go forward, but it's that way every year, but something that we've committed to not only through State of the Schools, but also our Board of Education priorities is school climate and student discipline. And recently, very upfront, that you've seen news stories regarding staff assaults. Any staff assault, no matter how many you have, whether it's one or more than one, is one too many. And we're very concerned about that. That's something that we've been focused on to look at specifically on how we can improve the climate within our schools and the student discipline within our schools. So in looking at that, we've been really looking at data and where are these incidents occurring and what's happening. So we've looked at a couple of different things, and you've probably heard some of these things from me before, but one challenge we've noticed is as we expand pre-K through Blueprint, 54% of our staff assaults have occurred through 4, 5, and 6-year-olds in our school system. So looking at that as we add another grade level and looking at bringing younger students into our school system, that's something that we're very focused on at this point in time. Also, when you look at overall elementaries, over 70% of our staff assaults are coming from that elementary school age. and also thinking about the needs of our special education population. They are intensifying each and every year, and we're seeing that within our schools and the staff that are working with our special needs students, especially those that have emotional disturbances and disorders. We're seeing those staff assaults occurring in that area as well. So I wanted Mrs. Miles to kind of talk a little bit about all the things that we are doing to address this and looking at how do you work with students at such a young age and that are exhibiting these behaviors, and some of the things that we're working on in our school system for that purpose.
Thank you again, Dr. Stauffer. So there's a lot that's happening, and I don't want to gloss over or minimize anything, but I want to give you many of the pieces that are in the puzzle right now. Dr. Stauffer mentioned data, and it's very important that we know what the numbers are, but more important, we have to know what human being created that number. Work with a team, an amazing team, where we are regularly on a regular schedule, very frequently, looking at the referrals, which is a step. But then within looking at the referrals, we're talking about specifically the physical attacks. We're narrowing it down to the individual student. And then we're finding, what are the patterns? Is it a repeat situation? Is it a singleton situation? Who are the staff involved? What are the responses of the staff? So that leads us into some other avenues. We have had individualized, team-based, grade level, and school-based professional development, trying to put the resources in the hands of the staff who are with these children every day. We're also working with administrators to support them in their responses and their understanding of what happens within the Code of Conduct. We are very fortunate in Wicomico County Public Schools. Our administrators are top-notch, and full credit to all of them. We need to keep supporting them and giving them that ability to be the best that they are. We also have implemented, through the leadership of our Director of Elementary Education and our Director of Secondary Education, in-house intervention short-term programs. I'm going to throw out some acronyms to you. It's okay, you don't have to remember them, but for primary, we're looking at the ELT, or Extended Learning. It has a butterfly, transition.
Early learning.
Early learning transition. Just remember the letters. We'll go with that. FACES in the intermediate grades, and then RTE in the middle and high school. Basically what that means is, Kim just threw out a bunch of letters. That's not what that means. What it means is we have in-house staff who are working very, very small scale, 2-to-1, 3-to-1, 1-to-1, in a setting where students who are having repeated behaviors may or may not be specific to the physical attack. I'm not honing in on just that right now. But we're providing additional support where they have a setting outside of the traditional classroom for a short period of time, number of days. They're getting intensive work with the social worker, intensive work with the school counselor. Often this is social skill development time, in addition to their individualized attention for academics. We're very early in the process. We're very hopeful. We're seeing positives come out of this, and we have to keep growing and developing it. Also, not looking specific to behavior, but things that impact behavior. The work with the middle school programs, the athletics, the intramurals, and things like that. While Dr. Stauffer very accurately represented the data that brings our concern with those physical attacks, those primary age students, over 70% of all of those referrals coming from elementary age students, and we're talking through grade 5. We also know there are changes in the data with regard to behavior at the middle school. So we're finding additional ways to further engage the students. There has to be accountability. They have to have a responsibility in terms of how to be able to be involved, but we have to provide the opportunities that they want to work for to get involved. And we're starting to see changes in that data as well. It's not, again, as I started by saying, it's not all about numbers. The numbers are the starting point that lead us into further examination, further discussion, further planning, and further support for the schools. That is by no means everything that's happening, but I did want to share some of the things going on a daily basis in our schools, at our central office, in our role of support and leadership.
How many staff have you had assaulted since the first of the year?
So at this point in time, the last number that we reported was 116.
116.
Like I said,
Now, of that 116, how many needed hospital care or have to go to the hospital?
We'd have to come back to you. Large portions, I would say, did not need to go to the hospital. When you're looking at staff assaults, that code within Maryland and then within our code of conduct could be anything from a push to a strike. So it would be coded as that, whether it was a push or a student trying to get by a staff member, or whether they're actually striking that staff member.
How many of them were repeat offenders?
When we look at our youngest ages, if you're looking at a student that is assaulting a teacher at middle or high school level, the code of conduct is going to be very severe. So chances are that student is looking at some type of extended suspension or expulsion from school. When you look at our primary students, the 4-, 5-, and 6-year-olds, as well as those that are in self-contained classrooms because of the special education needs that they have, that may not apply specifically to the code of conduct like it would in a middle or high school student. So you're going to see more repeat offenders at the very earliest ages because we're continuing to work with them, or more repeat offenders in our special education programs where you're seeing high needs of disabilities there.
How many times do they have to assault a staff member before they're expelled? They have faced expulsion?
If it's a student that's at a middle or high school level and there's no special education needs there in some respect, it may be just that one time.
Just a question, I guess. Assuming
I'm done. Yeah, for now.
Assuming that these the amount of dare I say aggression that has come from the elementary school level, is that if you had to point a finger, would that be because of the COVID blip, or are we just or is this has this always basically been there and we are now recording it or reporting it a different way, or what is this?
The reporting mechanisms are consistent, so we're looking at apples to apples on this. With regard to COVID, very honest answer, Mr. Hastings, is we're never going to know all the impacts, but we can't say that's what caused it. We have younger children who don't know how to do school, don't know how to be in a social setting with multiple other persons, same aged or different. And the responses are sometimes quite severe. Dr. Stauffer made a reference earlier. Please keep in mind, and I'm by no means minimizing the term physical attack on adult. That is the actual code language. But it does have a wide range. And it can be, I'm not going to hurt Dr. Rager, don't want to risk that in a public setting or any other setting, but, it could be me reaching out and hitting him in the arm, or it could be me doing something very serious physically to him. So when we look at these numbers, we're reading every single description of what's happening. I would also say, when you open the door, and thank you on the question of what might be causing it, we also have, and this is not a blanket answer, but we also have an increased awareness of the mental health needs of our children and our youth in our community. And is that perhaps a bit of a difference from the past? It may be. Or it could be there are more mental health needs in our children and youth in our community. A big change is the resources that are not available to these same children and youth that may have been to those who maybe 10, 15 years ago may have been exhibiting some of the same behaviors. We have amazing people trying to increase those resources, both within the school system and within the community. But that is a reality. The behaviors sometimes may have a root in the mental or behavior well-being of the child. And the only way to know that is to examine to see if that is a cause, and then to treat. Without the treatment availability, that's a void.
Dr. Briggs, question for you. because the blueprint for Maryland, one of the pillars is, of course, is to ensure that all students have a successful learning experience. So is maybe the state through blueprint possibly recognizing this?
I think they are recognizing it. Pillar 4 of the blueprint is more resources for student success, right? And whether that's a 4-year-old who's having trouble learning how to do school, or whether it's the intense special needs that a student might be coming to us with, that there is allocations to help with that. Now, to speak to something Dr. Stauffer is hammering out in the community, our school system is not set up to handle some of the intense needs of some of the students that are coming to us right now. Ms. Miles and I are constantly in communication, and we have a 6-year-old right now we don't know what to do. I'm saying this live camera, like, we do not know what to do with this young person. The trauma that he's experienced and is experiencing is causing him to come to school and demonstrate behaviors that are not acceptable in our school system. But he's 6.
Yeah.
He's 6. And so while there will be some funding, that is already coming and will hopefully continue to come to the school system, being able to hire and provide the resources that the students desperately need is still going to be problematic.
And I would say, just to add on to that, and thank you both, I think that's a good, accurate description. When you look at this issue, it's a multi-pronged issue. We are expanding a whole grade level of 4-year-olds in our school system that have never been there in the past. Temper tantrums and everything else that goes along with that. That presents itself as a challenge. The mental health needs in our community, through what we're seeing through our demographics as they change, and the increasing poverty of the students that are enrolling in our schools from our community, is presenting as a challenge, because those mental health needs are very real for not only the students but the families that they are in as well. The continued number, we've gone from approximately 600 English language learners in 10 years ago to now, last time I checked, it was 1,862 out of 15,000. That's 1 in 8 of our students that need English language instruction. So that presents itself as a challenge when you have a student with maybe high special education needs, maybe early childhood student, 4 or 5 years old, and learning English, and what that barrier and how it presents itself. And then also the special education intensity, the needs of that we're seeing within the students that are coming to us. That intensity of those needs is increasing each and every year, at the same time where over the last couple of decades we've seen the community agencies that work with students that present those types of needs reducing in our area and diminishing. So we definitely have challenges, so I think it's a multitude of factors that are kind of coming together to come into some of the challenges that we're facing in our school system as well.
Go ahead, Shane.
I have a couple of questions. I didn't go through this in school when I was coming up, because the teachers were allowed to discipline their children in their classroom, and that's a big problem. Now, if a little kid hit me on the shoulder, I don't think that's an assault. To me, that's not an assault. And just like you said, they're not used to being in classrooms and everything. I think it could be, and I never hear the parents. Now, you said the 6-year-old is traumatized. That's when, I think there's something wrong at home, and you may need to call the child advocacy, report the mother or father, whoever they're living with, to see and make them either sit in the class with their children just to see how the child acts, or work with the parent. And I think that's one of the things. But I think if a child hits a teacher, to me, I wouldn't call it an assault, just like a tap. Now, if he punches her, fights her or something, that's something different, a little tap, But I think that's one of the problems that we have, is that you can't do nothing with the children, and they know it. You can't, from my understanding, if a child's sleeping on their desk, you can't tap a ruler and make them wake up to learn. I don't think they can do that.
We can do that.
Oh, good,
And we
good.
do every single day. And
Good,
I
good.
just want you to know, as well as the rest of the council, that through the board's support, our code of conduct, we are making sure that that's being administered in a fair manner, but also in a strong manner to make sure that the message of what we expect as the behavior in our school system is very clear and out there every single day from our administrators to our staff. We also work very closely with Child Protective Services, the Department of Social Services, and as I said, we're collaborating with all of the agencies that we have at our disposal, but we also see those needs within our community rapidly increasing every single day as well.
Yeah, that's what just let me jump 1 second on behalf of the board. When we came in office, never in the history of, since I've been on, 2016, did we establish priorities right out of the gate. We picked the top priorities that we wanted to focus on, and it was school safety, school discipline. We spent countless hours in open work sessions rewriting the code of conduct, as Dr. Stauffer has said, and with Mrs. Miles' assistance. And so we're serious about getting the schools safe for learning. A child can't learn if they feel unsafe. But as Don Fitzgerald used to say, our former chairman, we can control what goes on with the students between 8 and 3, but when they go home, we can't control that. And that's what's happening. You see what's happening in the community, that's coming into the schools, and that's scary. I know Dr. Stauffer spent all summer meeting with all the school administrators to support the code of conduct. We put some more teeth in it in some ways, and I know they're administering it that way, but it's the community. I don't know how we fix that. I mean, I'd love to fix it, but it's beyond me.
Another question I heard on the news, read on the news, they have 750 kids that are being referred to the emergency room for emergency mental, and majority of them are minorities. How are we addressing that? Are they going there to getting put on medication?
So I'll start, then I'll refer it to Mrs. Miles. That's her area of expertise. It's not, from our, when you look at our trend data, we typically have, you can look at the last 5 years and even further out, somewhere between 120 to 140 emergency petitions from our school system of 15,000 students, 180 days of school each and every year. Again, 120 to 140, even one of them is too many. But also when you look at our data, almost 70% of them are for suicidal ideation, to get the medical attention that they need at that point in time. And that's not something that we're going to play with. But if you have anything to add to that.
I would just say for background, the emergency petition process, and you may or may not have information about it or background knowledge on it, but it is administered only by a very specific number of persons in each building, either with very specific licensure, LCSWC, particular social workers, or our persons who are trained and designated by the Wicomico County Health Department on an annual basis. It's not by position. We don't say all counselors can do this or all administrators. Very specific training and annual training. There are two situations in which a child would be emergency petitioned. That child is expressing suicidal ideation or language that would lean the direction of causing self-harm, intending to cause self-harm. And I'm oversimplifying a bit, but the other would be intent to harm with plan and access to harm others. And these are not, I'm going to knock your lights out. These are very serious situations. With the training, with the certification by the health department or by their licensure, when a student is emergency petitioned, it's not done for a discipline reason, has nothing to do with discipline. It's in response to that student's actions and words and plans, and then they have to be transported from the school to the hospital. That is done by a peace officer. In Wicomico County Public Schools, the Sheriff's Department, our SROs serve as the peace officer. They are the transport. They are not EPing. They are transporting. And then obviously we are in communication with family when that has to happen. We have no direct input and no control once that EP is handed over to the SRO, and the SRO in turn hands over the student to the team at Tidal Health. The reference to medication or treatment, we have no voice in that. A parent could receive direction that their child needs something in particular, and they could, by their decision as a parent, choose not to pursue. Or the hospital staff could determine that the child doesn't need to be there. It's a very traumatic situation for a child, but think about what has to occur before the emergency petition is ever even brought into the picture. There's already a trauma there that's occurring at that point in time. But as Dr. Stauffer said, I have, in the recent past, looked over 5 years of emergency petition data, and the vast majority, suicidal ideation, threat to cause harm to self, to the point that I've had to step away from looking at the documents over a period of time just because it is that overwhelming, quite personally. And I don't say that for an or an oh, just that's realistic. That's how serious this is. So with regard to ethnicity or gender or special identification or grade level, it's across the spectrum. It is across the spectrum.
And the peace officer can also write.
Yes, they can by authority, yes.
Next item we have is the firefighters elective classes.
I can speak to that one.
Sure.
So I think we mentioned it last time we were here, but so I've been working with Mr. Brian Ashby, our wonderful supervisor of CTE. Most of you have visited our wonderful CTE center before, and we're currently exploring 3 options of restarting our firefighter EMT program. One, he's having conversations down with UMES, where we had the program previously. They are getting ready to have a change in leadership. Mr. Ward is retiring December 23rd. So Brian's basically waiting for the new person to be named to start in January, where he'll be talking with him. That's one option. Option 2 is we already have existing partnerships with Warwick Community College in our dual enrollment program. So there's a possibility of expanding our dual enrollment opportunities to cover the firefighter EMT program. And then also, Mr. Ashby is also reaching out to Salisbury City Emergency Services to see if there's a partnership there where they could potentially come in, teach the class at Parkside CTE, and then us go to their training center over there on Cypress Street to do some of the training exercises there. So we definitely want to restart it. We feel there's a need in the community, and I think it'd be a good opportunity for some of our students who are currently interested or who could be interested. So I don't want to give us a timeline, but I'm hopeful that we might even be able to have it restarted for next fall.
So,
Joe?
When you start a program like that, how many applicants do you need to say, okay, it's worth it? Do you need 2, 5, 10, 1?
I don't know what the number is, Mr. Holloway. There's going to obviously have to be some interest, but you got to build it before they come, right? And I think because we already had it previously, I think we could start a little bit lower on the low end of the scale with the hope that obviously it would grow. And Dr. Stauffer, actually, when you were principal, it was probably the last time we had the program there, so you might be able to speak to it.
I can just say that before, when we had the program at UMES, and that program going away was not because we were not interested in having the program, or it also was not because of student interest. Our partners at the time, UMES, they were going through some changes, and unfortunately, we were not able to continue the program with them, and have actively continued to try to pursue bringing that program back since that time. But during the time that we did have our program at UMES, we combined with Somerset and Worcester County. So I would say on average, we probably had anywhere from around 4 to 8 students per year from Wicomico, and then they combined with those interested in Somerset and Worcester to meet at UMES for that.
Is there a purpose for having to do it with Warwick or UMES? I mean, why can't you do it on your own, I guess? Through the, I call it VOTEC.
CTE.
Yeah, CTE.
Yeah. So these are CTE programs. We would just partner with an agency like Salisbury City Fire Department or UMES or Warwick, because that's where the certified instructors would be able to, exist for our students.
So the board couldn't hire certified instructors?
I think we could, certainly, but also at the same time, if there are certified instructors out there and we're able to collaborate in partnership with an agency that's already doing that type of instruction, I think that would be something that would be faster as well.
think with all due respect to Somerset and Worcester, if we're expecting
Oh,
energy
absolutely.
here-
We're not going to wait for them, to start this program back. We'll get it started however we're able to.
We want to we're very concerned with the people who we need for Wicomico.
Agreed.
Step up in the ranks.
Agreed.
So, can I say something? So Shane and I both are on the SWOT analysis team, and one of the things that we are hearing is the hours, the amount of hours that are required to just volunteer to fight a fire. And I pitched the idea of maybe the Board of Ed being able to have like classroom time just to get the classroom hours in. I mean, to work on getting classroom hours in, because we've got fire departments like, I'll say Parsonsburg. Their cadet program is full. They can't accept anymore. How many other fire companies do we have that are like that need an instructor to teach students get them their 200 hours, whatever it is? It's a mess of hours. And if we can knock some of those hours down while the kids are in learning time, and this isn't useless knowledge. This is life-saving knowledge, and I think maybe that could be something that could be incorporated, maybe with our criminal justice program that we've already have. Maybe there could be a sub-wing of EMS and fire, just for classroom time, and then have the dual enrollment, just an idea, to go to Warwick so they can actually get some hands-on experience.
Jesus.
So that's my thought.
No, I agree with you, and that's exactly what we're trying to do. I think research out there, who we can partner with in our community. There's been a lot of interest, and I do believe that hopefully next year we'll be able to get this program up and running again. We're very familiar with the program. Mr. Ashby is very familiar with the requirements of the program. You're right. There are a lot of certified hours that the cadets have to be able to go through. And when we were running this program before, we saw that a number of our cadets were involved in volunteer fire programs within their community.
We're falling short on EMTs and paramedics in the county.
Yeah.
But the realistic matter of this is that if we don't help with hours, then we're going to wind up paying for it later, because we're not going to be able to get the volunteers anymore. And that means that someone's going to have to pick it up somewhere. And it's going to cost us longer in the long term. But if we can mitigate it here by encouraging the hours, encouraging the experience, encouraging the volunteering, we may be all right. We may not have to leave. We'll probably be fine with our volunteer system, because if we don't try and nurture this now, then I can see us having a big problem in 10 years.
The next item we have is the 2023 Maryland report cards.
I'll take that one also, Mr. Cannon. So you may recall back in, some of you were at the table in 2018 when the report cards first came out. I did a lengthy, probably close to an hour presentation for you. I will save you that time today, and I'll give you the 1 minute-ish version.
Love it.
Got you, Mr. Baker.
Sounds so excited.
But the star ratings most recently did just come out from the state. If you're interested in digging a little deeper into that, you can go to reportcard.msde.maryland.gov. That's reportcard.msde.maryland.gov. 19 of our 24 schools do receive star ratings. Those schools that do not are our primary schools, because we don't assess our primary students in all the mathematics, and we do assess them, but not on the state assessment. So that's why they don't get a star rating. Of our 19 schools that received ratings, 14 maintained their ratings from the year before, where 5 did drop 1 star level. It's actually slightly better than the state average. The state saw almost 30% of all schools reduced in the star ratings from last year to this year. Reminder of the indicators that affect school ratings: academic achievement, academic progress, English language proficiency, school quality and student success, which incorporates absenteeism, climate survey, and access to a well-rounded curriculum. And then our high school students also, or our high schools also get rated on graduation rate and on track for 9th grade. Our largest hit, we basically maintained I'm giving you high level, but on average, we pretty much maintained everywhere. Our largest hit came with our attendance, or chronic absenteeism. A student is listed as chronically absent if they miss more than 10% of the days they're enrolled in a school system. So 180 days, they miss more than 18 days, they're considered chronically absent. Now, I think it's important to note that it doesn't matter whether it's excused or unexcused absence. So death in the family, college visit, sick with COVID, whatever, if they miss 18 or more days for a student that's enrolled all year, they're listed as chronically absent. So that was where we lost most of our points. And also, another reason for that this year was our schools actually did a little bit better on the attendance, but the way the state gave points, they kind of gave us a buffer last year because of COVID. They reverted to the original system back from 17 and 18. And so we saw our schools who actually did better on attendance receive less points, which then impacted their star rating. So my team has met with each principal, went through all their schools' scores, and then now the schools are working with their school improvement teams to dig into their data even deeper and hopefully see improvements moving forward. So there's a quick recap of star ratings. And again, if you want to, if you go to reportcard.msde.maryland.gov, you can click on every school. You can also look at county assessment data. The counties do not get a star rating. The ratings go specifically to the schools.
In reference to your absenteeism, did they have the old-fashioned truant officer like they used to have to go out to the school?
We actually have a lot more.
Go out to the house and.
I'm going to yield to Ms. Miles. We all yield to Ms. Miles. Thank God she's here. However, we have more supports at the school than ever before to help address it. But
We do. Our PPWs are partnered with our schools, and one of their major focus areas is transportation. Sorry, I'm thinking transportation. Attendance. We got to get them there, and then we can
What's
count them as attendance.
PPWs?
People personnel workers, sorry about that.
And they're partnered with the school?
They are,
From where?
they're in each school.
They work for it.
our employees.
They're our employees.
Oh, okay.
They focus on attendance. They focus on helping to identify and plan and prepare and support our homeless youth as well. They have a vast array, but they have very specific certification and specific training in that area. They also work with the truancy program in Wicomico County and partner with other agencies. A lot of their time, you won't see them in the school or in the office. You'll see them on the road, in someone's driveway, at someone's place of work, trying to figure out what's going on with the child, trying to identify some needs and connect them with community resources that might be needed.
So what's the ramifications for a parent that just won't have a child in school?
I sign a paper that says we're filing charges for failure to send.
Can you do that?
Yes.
Is it done?
Yes.
Okay.
And a parent can be fined, a parent can be given jail time. Hopefully there are other interventions that will help. Before any of the court parts come into play, there's an accountability and responsibility on our end to make numerous attempts, numerous efforts, numerous documented steps before we go that route. So if it gets to the point that I'm signing off on failure to send, there's a lot that's already happened.
When a student is expelled, is that for the rest of the school year, permanent?
Expulsion is anything greater than 44 days of out-of-school suspension in a single year, and those days are counted by state law as excused absences. Disciplinary days do count as excused absences.
And it can go up to 180 days of school.
So where do expelled students go if they get expelled halfway through the year?
Street.
That would be the responsibility of the family.
Family.
Though we work with them because we do still provide regularly scheduled educational support. Students still earn academic grades during time of expulsion, and there are also other types of social skill, mental behavior supports that are provided during that time.
And that's all directed from state education law.
Okay. Thank you.
We have a lot of good topics I'm trying to move through as
I
quickly.
can tell, Mr. Cannon, you're doing a great job.
Next one is the student community service hours.
I think this was a question from the council.
This probably may. So, yeah. Well, so I'll make this quick so we can move on. But most of the time, I would like to see, I don't know you do this, but I would like to see encouragement of how to actually do community service. I know we have trash pickup days I know you can't tell the kids to do that, but maybe that's something we can partner with as a county. We can partner with Jennifer Albero. She runs the Cleanup Wicomico. I don't know if that's something that we can encourage to try and work on. And just also, just the departments, the fire departments. I mean, like, I know I keep saying the same thing over and over again, but I'm trying to get people interested in getting involved in community service. And I don't know if this is something maybe the schools can partner with each individual fire department to say, hey, you've got breakfast in Powellville, you need some help cooking breakfast or serving or yada, yada, yada. So I don't know if that's something that the schools would be entertaining.
We actually, we meet monthly with County Executive Giordano, and this was a topic that she had brought up regarding the county cleanup days. So we're more than happy to be able to partner with the county. We just need to give us some information. We can get that into the hands of our guidance counselors and be able to promote that with our students. And we'd be happy to provide that information to our students. And I do think a number of them would get involved so they could earn community service hours in that way. And I think that's a great collaboration with the county.
I think a number of those partnerships do currently exist. And keep in mind, there are certain requirements for student service learning.
Yeah.
And so anytime there's a question, please feel free to direct it to me. And it's within the Student Family Service team that we work with that. So I'll be glad to help out.
Okay, thank you, Kim.
Jen?
Smiles. I had contacted the gentleman over the tech, I don't know his name, and we're on the list, the Houston Cemetery. And for community service hours, I suggested that the kids come and plant beautification project. So just mention that to him, because we're open to that. Because sometimes you have surplus plants or something low maintenance type, and yeah, mention it, remind him, because I know he was busy, but I put my name on the list for that.
Next one may be ours as well, the registration deadline for public comments. I'm not sure if there's a concern about.
Yeah, I was going to ask. I'm taking that one, but is there a question, or you just want me to go through our policy, or?
That might have been me again.
I was looking at you, I didn't know.
Yeah, no, I noticed it was a 3-minute, it was I think a 3-minute requirement, and that you have to go in advance to register so you can make a public comment. My question is for our county, we don't allow that at all, and I just don't know, because we have quite a few people that make up their mind to say something while sitting in those seats. Now, what's preventing them from seeing that and then saying, well, what's the point of going? I missed the deadline, or I'm sitting in the seat, I can't say anything. I really have something I really want to say, but I can't say anything because I'm breaking the rules. I just don't think that's. We're not Montgomery County. I just think that it would be nice to see an open setting where we encourage parents to come in and say, hey, look, you can make a public comment at the last second, and it's okay.
And you can. Our public comment is, we open it up a week before the meeting, and you can register online. That way, I take them in the order that they register, but we take up to 20. So when the meeting opens, prior to the meeting, if we only have 5, then 15 other people can register to speak.
Do you normally max out at 20?
No.
I didn't think so.
No. I mean, we did this about 18 months ago when we were getting 25 or 30, and then we couldn't get through all our business.
Right, yeah.
But now, usually we have 3 to 5 register in advance, and then there's more at the onset of the meeting, but we've never had to max out.
Okay.
So they can still come, and no, you don't have to pre-register if you don't want, but when you show up, it's first come, first serve. So
Gotcha.
many people like to do it in advance because then they know they'll be first, second,
It
third,
gives them
fourth.
the opportunity that they know they're going to be able to.
Right. The only way we would turn you away is if we went past 20, but we have not done that, not this entire year.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
We had the CIP plan.
Gene, would you pass that over, Laura?
That was me.
Well,
That's not me.
I didn't.
You had the CIP, I believe, presented at the last
Just today.
meeting, and I just wanted to speak for a minute about.
We got it today.
Today, okay. So you saw that the Board of Ed is on there for $4 million.
Yeah, it's the only project we have for the Board of Ed.
Correct.
Yeah.
And just wanted to share some historical CIP funding that's on the chart that's coming around. So we present the CIP. I believe you received ours some time ago to the county council as well as to the county executive with a variety of priorities. At the initial CIP public hearing in November, it was number 2 and 3 that were on the list, and then we had since met with administration and met with the board first. They reiterated the priority 1 remained priority 1. So the funding amount didn't change, the $4 million, but shifted to the replacement of Fruitland Primary, which received some initial funding on in the previous year's CIP to get design development started. So that remains our number 1, but we still have needs, obviously, in the district. The priority 2 being the Fruitland Intermediate HVAC, and priority 3, West Side and Intermediate HVAC, are the most pressing. Those are old systems that are 25 years plus, nearing end of life, beginning to have some signs of failure, as well as the HVAC at Salisbury Middle, which is the priority number 4. So we know we're still pretty early in the process developing the budget for next year. Just wanted to put out there that certainly appreciate any consideration, appreciate the consideration of priority 1, but also note that $4 million is below what we had requested for priority 1 for the Fruitland Primary. And it will put us in a spot that if things don't change, we likely may get to a point through design development where we would have to put the project on pause.
My concern too, in looking at that, is that was the only year of funding listed. There's nothing 26, 27, 28.
Right, and you received our CIP that does go out
And I've
years.
seen yours,
Yes.
which is extensive for the top 10 projects that you do, that you're looking to do. And that is my concern. I would possibly hope that you might review that again, maybe with the executive branch, or you can do it through emails with the council as well. Because I think we do need to see where the continuity is. I mean, if we're going to commit $4 million in 25, where's 26? Because I don't think you want to commit more if you're not planning to do the whole 48.
Yeah, it's a long-term commitment, and we know where it is now that we would probably have to put it on pause. We certainly want to avoid putting it on pause when steel's coming out of the ground. So we're looking at timing and looking at cash flow issues so that we can make the appropriate decisions. We do have a CMR now lined up and ready to move forward. We had the schematic design approved by the state, and we'll be working on construction documents in the next phase. The chart that I shared with you shows the 25-year historic capital improvement funding from the county to the public school system. You can see, other than the historic low in 2012 with the Great Recession, we're reaching back down to that point, looking at the FY25, what we've seen so far. It kind of ebbs and flows as projects come and go, but that's where we are now. We are, just as an update as well, Mardella is on track. It's going to have its next major phase move coming up in the spring of 24 with some classroom shifting as we get to occupy some more of the newly constructed areas. And the other major project will be starting this summer, the Glen Avenue parking lot. If you've been by Glen Avenue during a school day, you've seen how crowded that area is in the front of the school. So we have a construction manager lined up, and they're beginning some design work and look for construction to take place over the summer.
You had listed also Wicomico County High School systemic renovation of the roofs as a canceled project, but I thought they had already done that. I thought they had done all the roofs.
The roofing project is a multi-year phase project, so we are wrapping up phase 1 now, be moving into phase 2 in the coming summer.
What I saw was only phase 1.
Yes.
It took them 3 days to get it all.
I believe there's 3 phases.
Yeah,
so.
three phases.
Also noted that on our original capital improvement plan request was an HVAC project for Fruitland Intermediate and also an HVAC project for West Side Intermediate. I also like to highlight that this year we were again one of the top 3 school systems in the entire state of Maryland for our maintenance inspections and the ratings that we get each year from the IAC regarding the inspections that are done on the regular preventative maintenance that we do each and every day in our schools.
Again, if you could maybe help us with some guidance, the executive with some guidance on all the years out after 25, plan or no plan, it's still going to have to, it still has to be somewhat close enough to a reality of a budget. And I think a $4 million in 1 year is not going to be really indicative of what we need to do and what our commitment's going to have to be.
Yeah, and our CIP showed that, and we're happy to continue to work with
That'd
you
be
as
great.
well as the county executive, definitely.
The last item is the preliminary maintenance of effort for next year. And I'm assuming that's continuing. There's a lot of confusion with Blueprint as to whether they're going to disband MOE and they were going to had a different formulas they were doing, but MOE is still alive and well.
MOE is alive and well. It's based pretty much solely on what your current year's per pupil spending is and student enrollment. So we very simply take the county allocation from the current year and last year's and the student enrollment, divide that allocation by the student enrollment, we get a per pupil funding of $3,513.71. Then we look at our student enrollment from September 30 this year. We've gone up 196 students, so that times the 3513 yields an increase of 687,808, a 1.38% increase in county funding to maintain MOE. Certainly appreciate receiving that MOE. I think we all know what's happened nationwide with prices and inflation over the last year. It's a tight budget time, of course, as we're all going through. We saw the news this morning with the coming from the state and what we're all forecasting. But that's where we are right now. We're continuing budget development. We're having meetings with department directors through this week, and then we'll begin making our decisions and moving forward with the budget development, and look forward to sharing that with you a little bit early into the next calendar year.
I would be remiss if I didn't at least point out that the same exact amount of funding per pupil for next year versus this year, when we've had, and all really the increase is that our enrollment increased. I would be remiss if I didn't say that that's really a decrease in funding, because when you look at inflation and everything that has occurred over the course of the year, that doesn't take into account any of that.
And we knew you would say that.
He gets that from his banker
That's
friend.
your job. We appreciate it. Very well done. Any other comments you'd like to make or questions from council? Again, thank you. It's always productive.
Thank you all.
Yep, we appreciate the time.
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thanks for the
Thank
time.
you. Have a great holiday.
Merry Christmas.
Yes.
Merry Christmas, everyone.
Entertain a motion to adjourn from an open work session, followed by closed work sessions pursuant to general provisions, Article Section 3-305B3 and 8 as follows: to consider the acquisition of real property for public purpose and matters related thereto, to protect the county's bargaining power, and to consult with staff, consultants, and other individuals about pending or potential litigation to protect the county's legal position. So moved. Second?
Second.
Got it. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?